For the love of games!
Hello everybody, my name is Steven from Pixelattack.net and welcome to our review of Poltergeist, a pixelated horror. Games often put us in the role of the victim, where the gameplay revolves around the idea of reacting to obstacles put before you. Poltergeist, a pixelated horror, attempts to do the opposite. Instead of being the one frightened by the spooky ghost, you are the ghost. You are this guy, Henry B. Knight, and aside from owning a kick-ass mansion, you aren't doing so well. For starters, you're dead. But being dead ain't so bad, and the real kicker here is that when Henry was alive, his wife died unexpectedly, and Henry didn't take her passing all that well. He became a bit psychotic, and on his deathbed, he declared he would never part ways with his house, and it shall remain his indefinitely. But it turns out that Henry's kids are jerks, because shortly after they sold the place, which has brought Henry back in spectral form to defend his rightful throne from would-be tenants. Poltergeist is an isometric puzzle game developed by Glitchy Pixel. It is available on the PC, Mac, and Linux, and a Vita version will be coming soon. Each level in Poltergeist is a series of rooms full of tenants. Using your nefarious spectral powers, you encourage these residents to flee screaming from the premises. Scare all of them away and you succeed. Use up all your powers while some still remain and you'll have to try again. The concept is simple and easy to grasp, and even though I skipped the tutorial at first, I had no problem coming to terms with how the game worked. Each tenant has a life meter with up to 3 points on it. Each time they witness a supernatural event, that life meter goes down until it reaches 0 and they flee in terror. Speaking of levels, there are a ton of them, around 60 in all, and they are all divided into different eras. You'll start off spooking in the classical era before moving on to the 80s, where you'll scare the mullets off of hipsters, and then move on to modern and office eras. It sounds overly simple at first, but Poltergeist quickly layers on some new mechanics that will make things a lot more interesting. For starters, special characters like witches or priests make frequent appearances, and in each level they will have various immunities to certain powers. Using that power in a room they are in will cause them to dispel it, effectively wasting that use. There are also characters who are distracted, sometimes sleeping or watching television, that won't respond to your powers until you startle them out of their focused state. Not only will you have to manage these special characters, but each era also has 3 boss levels that will add even more complexity. Bosses are amped up special characters who are able to dispel any power that they witness in a room. Furthermore, each era's boss also has a special mechanic, such as the 80s era boss, who shows up in a Ghostbusters-esque station wagon and lays down power dispelling traps in each room that you'll have to waste powers on to trigger. Furthermore, bosses can't be scared until everyone has already fled the level, at which point you can use an especially horrifying power to send them screaming off into the night. The powers you gradually unlock are all diverse and offer new ways of spooking tenants. Each power must be used effectively to succeed. You'll start with basic ones like moving an object to spook anyone in a room or making noises to lure characters about the level, and eventually unlock much more powerful ones like spectral wolves who will chase characters into another room, or being able to possess tenants and scare others away as they wander about growling and twisting their heads 360 degrees. The whole package is just a gleeful good time, and the art style is reminiscent of old PlayStation RPGs with 2D sprites and 3D environments. The game just brims with personality. Tenants speak in this gibberish language that is downright hilarious to listen to, especially when a witch starts reciting an incantation to ward off your supernatural advances. Detailed and well-animated character sprites make each scare a joy to watch as tenants trip over in fear and hurl themselves for the door screaming. Special characters all have a unique style, and it's worth wasting a power just to see how they dispel it. There are these cute nods to Ghostbusters in the 80s era, where these ghost hunters will don their proton packs and fire rays at objects you are manipulating. Your supernatural exploits are accompanied by pleasantly moody music, which fits the tone nicely, chiefly by being somber but in a fun way. But it begins to feel repetitive on complex levels that warrant multiple attempts. Having the soundtrack changed during a level would have helped alleviate this in a big way. Poltergeist, while lovable, remains hampered by a few flaws. For starters, it quickly becomes apparent that the game is built around the philosophy of only having one right answer to each puzzle. That isn't to say that there aren't multiple ways to beat a level, but they usually feel incidental, and the game does nothing to reward extra efficient use of powers. This also becomes a problem in some of the very complicated levels, especially those with bosses, because the game eventually boils down to and encourages a trial and error approach. Players aren't rewarded for smart and clever use of their powers, but instead expected to poke around blind until they finally stumble into the right combination of powers to beat a level. Not every level caters to this, and many of them feel intuitive enough that glancing across the rooms I formulated the correct plan before even having to act or realize the correct move halfway through a bad attempt, but higher difficulty levels become overly frustrating as all you are doing is attempting different powers and different combinations, hoping to stumble into success. In a lot of ways, Poltergeist is like the iPad game Hitman Go. Both games offer puzzles with only one correct route to success, but the difference is that Go gave players the freedom to experiment but also rewarded them for going back and refining their method for beating a level. Poltergeist offers no such reward. You either use the powers exactly as the developers intended or you fail. Other problems plague the game also. The interface isn't as intuitive as it could be and also encourages a trial and error approach to completing the challenges. One power in particular, the noise power, which allows you to lure characters into other rooms, was very bothersome because of how random it appeared to be. The tutorial explains that the power has a hierarchy of who will respond first, starting with special characters, then dogs, and then normal characters. The problem is that the game seems totally fine with tossing out this hierarchy whenever it pleases. In some boss levels, the boss would be the one to respond to a noise in another room, but in another boss level, that same power would have different results. Having a system in place that showed which character would respond to the noise before using it would have been highly useful, especially because there is no ability to undo a botched power. Instead, you just start from the beginning, which is frustrating. Another annoying issue is that there is no discernible way to tell which objects you can manipulate and which you can't unless you have a power selected. Rooms are often full of objects, but for some reason only a few will be at your mercy. This drove me nuts a few times when I hatched a plan, initiated a few steps, and then got into a room only to find I couldn't use any objects like I thought I could. Sure, this could be prevented by careful planning, but having a way to know this ahead of time would have been nice. Overall, Poltergeist is a fun game but held back by a few issues that prevent it from reaching greatness. The atmosphere and personality are charming and always manage to bring a smile to my face, even when I was considering quitting out of frustration. Completing levels can be satisfying, but the fact that each level essentially boils down to a strict combination required to beat it not only becomes trying exercise and persistence, but also makes the whole package weaker because there is no sense of progression. Spooking tenants is a lot of fun, and the lighthearted approach to the haunted house premise are the things that keep the game going strong when the core mechanics begin to show their flaws. But flawed as it is, I recommend Poltergeist, a pixelated horror, to anyone looking to have a good time spooking, even if the scares don't always come as easily as they should. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more awesome videos or articles on gaming, be sure to check us out at pixelattack.net and add us on Twitter at pixelattack. Have a great day.